Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Now first, I'd like to apologize for not getting a video out Thursday. I've been working on this all week, so it's been pretty busy and I never got a chance to release a video then. Anyways, let's get on with it. Today I have Racillion doing the voiceovers. I met him just a week or two ago, and he had some interesting ideas on pretty much how Mercy 2.0 doesn't work. It simply does not click with the character. It can't be balanced, it can't be fixed, it simply needs to be trashed. Anyway, I'm just gonna turn it over to him, and let's get started.
So the chain healing has the power to effectively heal the team in an area. Now, this is a consistent healing that typically is not really going to be as powerful as one might think, because for the most part there's going to be not consistent damage that's going to be applied to your team. In the most common situations, you're going to have either a large amount of burst damage coming in, which at that point the healing doesn't matter because the burst is going to be overcome by it, or you're going to have focus fire. Whether or not the enemy decides to focus a particular teammate or a few of them, this really doesn't have a good strength against that, because if they are consistently able to get damage on some of the teammates, well, at the same time you could have been just as effective with the single target beam being applied to the targeted teammates. And actually, it also adds another problem of being this kind of passive power that the player doesn't get to affect so much, because it's not rewarding their prioritization, their strategic use of the healing, because it's going across everyone in a particular area. So it doesn't require nearly as much concentration on who you should be healing, because it's going to go to not only the tank, it's going to go to the DPS next to the tank, the other support who's probably amongst the team there, or any other teammates that are particularly coalescing together. In those situations, you're not going to be getting as much out of that healing as you would have gotten out of the regular healing. The counterpart to chain healing is chain damage boost. Chain damage boost is more effective in its usefulness to a team than the chain healing, since this is no longer about negating damage that's kind of consistent. It's now about elevating your team's effectiveness. Now, that may sound good on paper, and it is powerful, but unfortunately for the Mercy player, it's not particularly engaging, because similar to how prioritization is something that is engaging for the Mercy player to switch between targets for healing, same applies for chain damage boost versus regular damage boost in terms of that prioritization reward. Choosing who to damage boost normally is something that you need to consider in context to who also needs healing. But that goes away considerably when you have chain damage boost, because now not only is the healing something you don't have to prioritize particularly, it goes to everyone in an area. The chain damage boost doesn't require prioritization either. Now it's just flick between healing or damage boost. That's a much lesser thought process than choosing between healing and damage boost, and then also who should you prioritize with. It takes away that layer of engagement because it goes across the team and there's no variation in that. The other portion to it is that even though increasing your team's effective damage output is good, the way it does it is actually not the best for team play. we can look at Discord Orb with Zen. That one is another way you can effectively increase the damage output of a team. But that one encourages prioritization of enemy targets, which Chain Damage Boost does not do. Instead, you're more of giving everyone power to do whatever they please, and only if they choose to focus is it actually being used in a good team method. Whereas Discord Orb encourages focusing of targets, which is a much better team play, because the players on the team are rewarded for going after the single target they can do more damage on, versus just having their damage increased across the board for everyone. Valkyrie also has the other stat of uninterrupted passive regen. Now, this is a power that is within Valkyrie, but it's one that is not particularly engaging for the Mercy, and it's also one that just adds to the annoyance of the character and seeming to be less fair to deal with, because when you have uninterrupted passive health regen, you remove a good bit of risk for exposing yourself. You can just go into a fight. You don't have to be as considerate for damage taken because it just gets regened immediately. There's that reduction of risk, which for most players, they're not going to have that on other heroes. So frustrating that there's this character, yes, they have their ultimate, and ultimate is supposed to be powerful, but that's just something that ends up feeling really overbearing, when for the Mercy player, it's not something that feels that great, particularly because it's not rewarding your good play. It's just there. It's a power, but it's a power that really doesn't reflect on what you're doing. It's a passive. Well, as its name implies, it's something that is this stat that, while it doesn't really say for how good you're playing her, it's there as a power. But it's not something that really feels that strong either, because as soon as you get hit with a sniper or an ultimate that is aimed focused, that means nothing to you at that point, which also encourages the use of those ultimates and those heroes, which are frustrating to deal with in their own right, but they have to take more effort to take her out, whereas with the Mercy, you don't, when you're playing her, you don't feel that there's much effort that you're going into, so it just means you're going to get either shut down immediately, or you don't have anyone going after you at all, because they don't want to waste their time on you, which it's both instances either feels you're being really hit hard for something that you're not really doing. It's something that's just a part of the ultimate. Whereas if you also just ignore it, it seems like you're not really part of the match at that point, and you're just a spectator. We've gone through 3 aspects of Valkyrie so far. Now these aspects, the chain healing, chain damage boost, and the uninterrupted passive health regen, they don't help with the engagement of the character, and they do remove risk. But there's not just those aspects. There's 3 other additional portions to Valkyrie that really, again, take away from engagement on the character. And those are infinite ammo, free flight, and also the duration of the ultimate. Infinite ammo, while it's nice not having to be concerned with your ammo count, it doesn't necessarily make it feel stronger, as we would expect an ultimate to do. Instead, it just means I don't need to really think as much about where I'm going to try and aim and get someone. Instead, it's better to just spam an area with the blaster as opposed to having something where you would have more thought, more consideration for where you're aiming with the use of your blaster, and also more risk. If you don't hit your shots, then you've wasted part of your ammo clip, which with infinite ammo, you don't have that risk. Then there's the free flight. Free flight is not a bad power, and it's not something that's unfun necessarily. It's something that just isn't particularly powerful in its feel. It's because free flight doesn't have much of variability to it, and while yes, you can fly up into the air and you can go down, you get over obstacles, and you are more independent than you normally are, it's mostly just feels as a faster form of walking, which it's a power, but it's not one that's particularly engaging. In fact, because you don't have to consider who you're going to go to with the use of free flight, you don't have the engagement factor of considering your position relative to teammates, because it doesn't matter when you have free flight taking care of all your concerns when getting around the map. Yet, because it also has that power, it can't be particularly fast because otherwise it's not very counterable. So, when you have free flight being this ability that part of this ultimate, it's something that doesn't feel particularly impactful because it's consistent, because it's not something that you have to really think about its use. It's already there. It's just another part of the ultimate that you really don't feel is something that you're doing well, because it just works in a certain way, and that way is irregardless of how you play it. And then there's duration. Duration really hurts a lot of the rest of this ultimate, because when something lasts for a long while, it doesn't feel as if it matters so much to time the use of this ultimate well, because in many cases you use this ultimate and either it's a fight that's very long and drawn out, so the duration is just not going to last the fight, or more often, fights won't last long enough for that whole ultimate to be used, and as a result, you more or less will have additional time on the ultimate where you might say, I really don't see where the value is anymore with this duration. It's a power of the ultimate, but it's a power that, again, takes away from engagement in its use, because now you don't have to consider as much when it's best to use it, because there's a long window, a large window really, that you have to make use of what is in it. And then this comes into the overall issue. Valkyrie has these 6 features: the chain healing, the chain damage boost, the uninterrupted passive health regen, the infinite ammo, the free flight, and a long duration. 6 elements that, as a result, none of them really feel impactful because they don't significantly buff something in the character, and it also doesn't necessarily require more thought for use of it because of that duration, because you have less risk involved. So as a result, it just takes away from the engagement. And every bit of it feels very cheap, because if any part of it felt like it was really worth an ultimate, you would only use that part. Resurrect on E is a much more powerful and unbalanced ability than Resurrect as an ultimate, because Resurrect on E takes away a lot of the weaknesses and limitations that came with the Resurrection Ultimate in terms of its optimal use and its potential of when it can be used. Resurrect, when being available at the beginning of fights, allows it to reverse the most important kill that can occur for a team. The first pick gives an opponent a much better advantage of winning a fight. Being able to reverse that is much stronger than an ultimate that cannot reverse the first pick because it's not available at the beginning of a fight. And since that is the case, more than likely the Mercy is going to be alive at the time because it's going to be the first pick, and usually the Mercy is going to position in such a way that they're not going to be the first one picked off. However, because that first pick can be reversed, that is a much stronger ability, since that gets rid of the opponent's advantage in that fight. And also during that time of trying to get the first pick, opens them up to being picked off at that moment as well. When it's the ultimate, that's not available at the beginning of fights. It has to be charged. Now, charging the ultimate requires teammates to have taken damage, but not too much damage that they're not alive anymore, because if teammates are downed, it means that you can't charge ultimate up quickly enough to make it something that you can use at that point. Being on a cooldown allows that ability to not have the limitation of being charged, so that countering the most important pick, which is the first pick, allows that the Mercy's team to keep up momentum. And momentum is the more important aspect than to reverse a team wipe. A team wipe reversal is also more difficult to execute when there's both the opponents trying to go after the Mercy, and there's less teammates around who can distract from that. Then when you compare it to a common ability that's on a cooldown, where most of Mercy's teammates are going to be up, because it's not worthwhile to use Resurrect oftentimes when multiple teammates are down. So at that point, it's not used. Whereas, as soon as the first pick occurs, that is when it's safest to go for those reses, and that's something that's more often to happen. So with its availability coming up continually, it allows the ability to be much more broken in terms of how it's being dealt with, because the effort that's required to attain it, the effort that's required to execute Resurrect, is significantly less than what getting a first pick is, more often than not. But if you have to require an ultimate to reverse a first pick, well, now that ultimate is out, and the only way that that's going to be coming back anytime soon is if opponents are not dealt with, that is, teammates do not drop, and they only take an amount of damage that allows Mercy to do enough healing to gain back that ultimate. But that requires a window where there is no Resurrect. The Mercy has to play in positions that allow them to actually gain back that ability to Resurrect. So if they play good positioning, their teammates play well enough that there's not a lot of pressure on the Mercy, then Mercy can get back the ultimate, and that can feel oppressive. However, when it's as this common ability on E, on a cooldown, the team does not have to play well particularly. The Mercy does not have to play well particularly. There's not a lot of effort that has to go into being able to reverse what is the more valuable death in a team fight, which is the first pick, which innately sets the team at a disadvantage if they are the ones having that first pick happen to them. So, overall, when you have this ability as a cooldown, you break its main weakness of it needs to be earned. When it needs to be earned, it's something that's not going to be innately available unless the Mercy player is playing in a way that they don't get picked off themselves. It also means that there's less opportunity for opponents to shut down a Mercy, because when it's an ultimate, you can kill Mercy a number of times and you can prevent them from having res as frequently. Whereas with this one, the first pick, that's going to be oftentimes taken away. It's not because the Mercy was necessarily playing well, and it's not because the opposing team is playing poorly that resurrect can go off. It's more of the abilities handed out. It's just there to be used continuously. And as a result, it's not particularly satisfying to also use the ability, because most of the value of it is not because you were playing well as Mercy. It's because the ability was just there. And then the most value is going to be coming from whether or not your teammate who is rezzed actually performs after that, which may not be fully in their control either. But either way, you have this as a cooldown ability, and you really put something that is a power that is oftentimes earned in other characters, in that they have to gain charge on an ability that provides a lot of power for their team. This one, it's there, and it reverses one of the single most weaknesses that a team can experience, which is having someone down, the first one down in a fight, when the opposing team has all of their members up. Mercy's healing has, from the beginning, had this amount that's a consistent amount of healing. It's not on a particular resource, however, it's had a particular limitation. It's single target. Unlike many healers who have a method of healing multiple teammates simultaneously in their main ability set, Mercy has only had the single method of healing. It has been her focus, and it has required the Mercy to focus on healing as opposed to doing damage. This has been an engaging gameplay nonetheless, because the optimal way to heal is having a good prioritization on who you should be healing at any given moment. That particular gameplay of overcoming the challenge, it may not be the most difficult challenge, but it is something to say that you need to prioritize teammates such that no one really drops when multiple people have taken damage. With the single target beam, you have the ability to heal a teammate relatively effectively, but with the limitation that you can only heal one. Other healers have multiple ways that they can heal, and many times those ways involve being able to heal multiple teammates at once. And that's part of how their engagement in the gameplay works. They have to manage meters, health meters, or they have to manage a cooldown on the availability of a better form of group heal or a particular strong heal. Mercy didn't need those particular mechanics to have engagement with her healing, because with the single target, it's about good prioritization. Now, when Valkyrie became an ultimate, that particular gameplay aspect was mostly removed, because once you made Healing Beam, even though it is within an ultimate, you make it a consistent, unmetered AoE heal. Now you've taken what was something that required more thought to make effective and remove that. So that now creates the situation of the healing is not particularly engaging like it once was when you have Valkyrie going on. But when it's not in when you're not in Valkyrie, the healing is more satisfying to effectively execute, because you're still using that single target heal. However, because you have Valkyrie as an ultimate, you've now had to reduce the amount of healing because you now have an AoE heal. An AoE heal that, unlike other healers who have to manage cooldowns, have to manage resource meters, or they also have to be within range of their teammates to affect that AoE on them. Mercy doesn't need to be in a particular position relative to teammates to affect that healing that's in an AoE when you're in Valkyrie. So that just reduces the engagement in healing, and that's particularly unfortunate because Mercy is a dedicated healer. She does healing in exchange for not doing damage. Whereas most other healers, they do have the ability to do damage while they're also healing. That's something that is a part of how they work, and it's something a part of how Mercy works when she cannot be doing damage when she's healing. However, that's part of the limitations that you need to work with to overcome, and doing so gives you a satisfaction that if you keep your teammates up, then you're playing her well. When you then have Valkyrie coming into the mix, that reduces that particular satisfaction, and then because you don't need to have as much consideration on prioritizing teammates and who you should be healing, or also, for this matter, of the beam's damage boost also comes into play, that now you don't have to consider when do you need to and who do you need to heal, as opposed to be using damage boost. You now have this AoE effect that takes less consideration to be effective with, because it's something that's innately effective as an AoE. And without a particular resource limitation on it, it just takes what is something that otherwise was engaging to play and removes a lot of that engagement, which then creates the issue that, well, now there's no way you can heal better. There's not a particular method that you can do that improves your healing, because you only heal at a certain amount. And you have this ultimate that, while it means you don't have to consider as much who you're healing, that's just reducing your effort in engagement, as opposed to providing you a more powerful sense that I'm playing better. And that just reduces a lot of the enjoyability in playing. playing the character.
Before I end up the video, I want to say thank you for watching the whole way through. I know this is a lengthy video, but it was really needed to be this length. Also, thank you so much, Resilient, for helping me create this video. It took a very, very long time for us to get this recorded and such, so thank you so much for that as well. Anyways, make sure to leave anything that you thought about, you agreed with, disagreed with in the comments, and I'll see you next video.